Actually, we can have a quick look at the rand in a second, how it's going. I'm sure you always have it on your mind wherever you're moving around. But basically, do you think a lot of people would have made money at that time shorting? And before we start, actually, maybe for the viewers out there, just give us a potted version of what short selling of the rand actually is.
Well, short selling of the rand would simply mean that you're going into the market and you're buying dollars and being short of rand as a speculative position, and that you carry that position and roll it over on a short-term basis through the foreign exchange swaps, so that you roll it until that occur where the rand has weakened, and you can then sell your dollars that you went long of to buy back the rand that you are short of.
Now, do you think when that, you see the rand spiked, was it about 1%? We're having a look now. I mean, look, it's down 0.5% at the moment. It's 14.74, or just gone up to 14.75, just about 0.5% there. But I mean, do you think that on that day, I mean, it went down by about 1%, I think, the day of Magashule's announcement about the Reserve Bank. Do you think a lot of people would have been out there making money from shorting this rand?
I think very well so, yes. But that would not because they were anticipating what he was going to say. That was just before that, your economic data, your growth figures for the first quarter came out. So there already was a signal that we're in for a bit of a tough time, and that economically, with growth figures being revised downwards by everybody, including the central bank, and then obviously low growth figures has got an impact on your fiscal side, where sales are lower, means the VAT income is lower, means that your what I always call your vital statistics in terms of shortfall, your budget deficit, all of those comes into play when you have low growth figures. So people would have entered into short positions. I think they had an added bonus with Magashule coming in and making the statements that he's made. But I don't think that was an anticipation of what he was going to say. I think that was a bit of a surprise.
Now, in this country, are there, for want of a better phrase, professional short sellers, people who that's all they do?
Well, we must remember that all the banks, all the authorized traders by the central bank, like the standard banks and the Investex and First Nationals, etc., are allowed to enter into short positions, either short or long positions. So they're allowed to enter into positions in anticipation of what markets is going to do. At the same time, they obviously advise their clients accordingly. So we do. We do that as well, advise our clients whether they should be long the currency or short the currency, depending on what we expect. So yes, that's in the normal course of business that people are doing it. Whether that's their absolute focus, I think if we speak to all the banks, they would tell you that they focus more on flows. And when we speak about flows, there we speak about imports and exports and financial transactions, the buying and selling of bonds and equity, etc. So that's what they would focus on, because that's where your most money would be made. But I would outrightly say that everybody's lying if they say that they do not take speculative positions based on what they expect the currency to do.
How long have you been in this business yourself?
I've been in this business since 1983.
Ah, now so you've got a whole history.
I've been in the business since 1983. I've lived through the times where the rand was inverted from a direct to an indirect quote. I was a dollar-rand trader myself. I was making and quoting prices to importers, exporters, and doing short selling and buying, going long on the currency at times of positiveness, etc. So yes, been around the block.
Now, in all the 36 years you've been trading the rand, do you think this is like, for want of a better word, like, is it a good time to be a short trader on the rand, short seller?
I'd be very cautious at this point in time to go too short of rands, because ultimately I do think that things will go a little bit better. I think this whole debate about the Reserve Bank is an old debate. I think it's a debate that's a little bit out of proportion. Central banks all over the world is actually 100% owned by the state in most cases. And if we just look at the Federal Reserve, then they also take growth into account. And I would definitely not say that our central bank's not taking growth into account. Their emphasis is obviously on maintaining solid, good monetary policy. But at the same time, growth is part and parcel of an economy. And so, yes, that would be part of their focus in the normal course of business. We don't have to tell them that. I think Mr. Letsega Kenyaku and his Monetary Policy Committee is well aware of that. And I think if we look forward for the next month or two, we are entering into a phase with the growth as it is at the moment, that we could, if inflation stays where it is, that they could actually lower interest rates a little bit. There's a group of economists in this country that believe it could even be lowered by 2%. I think that might be a little bit too much, but I'm definitely in the camp of bring it down by 1%. We need a little bit of money in the consumer's pocket so that they're a little bit looser. And I think that the growth in our economy will be driven by the consumer. So all of these things will be taken into account by the central bank.
And just finally, of all the eras that you've been selling rands and buying rands in the last 36 years, is there an era that reminds you of the kind of volatility that we're seeing right now?
Well, we must remember that in 1985, we had the dead standstill after the Rubicon speech by Mr. P.W. Botha. In those days, we had the financial markets in South Africa closed for 2 days. Literally, equity markets, money markets, foreign exchange markets, everything was closed. The volatility was actually more extreme than it is currently.
Really?
So
it's still nothing to 85. Where would you compare it to in between the two, would you say?
I think we are more or less here, my personal feeling, in the 92s, 93s, things were really bad before the democratic elections. We had a central bank out at that stage that was heavily defending the value of the currency. We had massive intervention by the central bank. Let's not forget that in 1994, when after the elections, especially when Mr. Tito Mboweni came in, he started off with an oversold forward book on the foreign exchange markets of some $23 billion. So in essence, South Africa was bankrupt at that stage because we owed, well, we were shorter of dollars than what we had on reserves. And so this sort of kind of reminds me to that. And I think we've always been in a market where the currency is a little bit politicized. I think it might be a little bit overweight at this point in time. I think Mr. Ramaphosa is on solid footing. I think people are criticizing a little bit too much. Some of these things came out at the wrong time now. New cabinet and everything, let's give them 3 months and see how it goes.
Indeed, we'll be following it every step of the way on this program. Thank you very much for your time and insights. That was Andre Cilliers, Director at Treasury ONE.